why you got involved in intercultural work.
I was born in Leeds quite a few years ago, and I found myself in an area. I was brought up in an area where now it's probably the most multicultural part of the city. So in one sense, it's sort of very precious to me, the whole thing. But I think I stumbled really into the whole issue of intercultural, I would say, mission movement rather than just church, although I've been working with a lot of different churches. That's been my sort of main passion. And it came about through sort of incredible circumstances, almost serendipity, which I believe God was very much working in. And it was to do with the fact that we felt that in order to have credibility within the city, a few of us as white leaders felt that there was a great gap and no real communication between the black-led churches in the city. And so we started meeting together to address some of the issues of the Windrush and the rejection that black leaders felt particularly. And that went on for a period of almost 2 years. We met and discussed, sometimes monthly, bi-monthly, and prayed. And we came to a place eventually where we made a public declaration at an international event, sorry, not an international event, a Connect event in the city. And we made a public declaration of reconciliation. And that was fine, but where did we go from here? And I was asking that question very much. And over a period of, well, quite a short time actually, the Global Day of Prayer movement began to develop. And I thought that this would be a really good base in order to try and bring together not only the African Caribbean community, but a growing number of nationalities that really started coming into the city big time between 2000 and 2012. And so we had this Global Day of Prayer event which exceeded all expectations. And from that, relationships were built. And that was fine for 2 or 3 years. And then I felt very much, well, it's all right, us as Christians being together sort of inside. The city needs to see this incredible joy. I can't sort of say anymore because there are others here, but
yeah, great.
I can go
just
on.
give me what has been perhaps the biggest challenge and the biggest kind of fruit of doing this?
I think the biggest challenge has been, in one sense, people capturing a vision. And the work aspect of that has been, for me, doing a lot of research and really hot-footing around as many different people as possible in order to help that get established. But then it seemed to come to a tipping point where things started beginning to roll through the relationships and through everything. I'm sorry it sounds just like me. I mean, there are other things that were going on and there are other people engaging within the city, but that's been my particular journey in terms of vision. But that's been the biggest challenge. And of course, people and churches just very much caught in their own programs and thinking, well, what's the point in all this interaction? Where's it going? And that is a constant challenge.
Very helpful, very helpful. Laura, you're in Leeds now. Less than 20 years ago working in this field. What are you up to now with students particularly?
Yeah, so my journey's been very much more with international students. So I work for Transformations and we're based in Leeds. I've been working with international students for about 7 or 8 years now. And I've seen how great churches have been at hospitality towards international students. And I started to question as a team, what about for the Christian students who arrive? And as Bishop Mike referred to earlier, the reverse missionaries among us as they arrive. And so as a team, we were thinking about how is it that we can help churches to embrace diversity through the international students who are arriving in the UK for short-term for study. So I did a master's course over at All Nations in Intercultural Church, and part of that I did a dissertation project, and we encouraged about 9 international students to come along for cooking workshops where they could come and learn about Intercultural Church, come and figure out what gifts they have and what is it that they could offer their church leaders as a result of being present and being an active member of their church. So looking around the room now, I see lots of church leaders, and I'd just love to encourage everybody to share a vision of intercultural church, and secondly, to delegate. I think a lot of people, maybe your biggest challenge might be is resources and timing, and not being able to prioritize that well. But if we work together and if you find some people in your churches who maybe they're students, maybe they're here for a short time, actually you can still use them to help your church go on a journey. So for myself, I'm up in Cornerstone and Headingley in Leeds Baptist Church, and we've encouraged students to come and share songs from their home cultures. We've also been partnering with Resonance Band, who's done the worship here, and we've put on a couple intercultural worship workshop day events, as well as outreach concerts. And these have been phenomenal. Students have come and they've said, wow, we've been able to, come to your Seeker Bible studies, but we've not been able to experience worship before and hear Jesus being sung about in my own heart language. This is fantastic. So I must say, worship is a huge opportunity as well. And just a final note, at the moment, we're doing some research about graduate discipleship needs for international students, and we're hoping to gather data from about 400 Christians who have graduated from anywhere in the UK in the last 7 years, and we want to create a piece of research to publicly put it out there so that churches like yourselves can better disciple international graduates who are, a lot of them, sticking in Leeds now. So if you know any international graduates, please see me or see Phil, who's giving a wave at the end. Thank you.
Brilliant, excellent. That's Leeds. Tanny, Pastor Tanny from Liverpool, do you want to share some of your story together for the Harvest, 20 years, what you've seen happen in Liverpool?
Okay. The main guy is actually hiding behind there, Nick Harden. He's the director of TFH. The story began for us 20 years ago. In 2003, in fact, before then, there was a unity movement in Liverpool, which was bringing churches together. And so going into Liverpool, that was really good for me because I had a body that I could engage with. So that was the start of the journey. This was in the early 90s. And then from there, what happened was the vision developed about not just, there was the DVDs in those days, There were these transformation videos that emerged from Cali in Colombia and various places about how cities were getting transformed. But at the heart of it was unity. Churches coming together to pray and to fellowship and how God was doing incredible things in those places. And you saw fruits that were being harvested and they were massive. And I thought, wow, we could have a bit of that in Liverpool. So these were things that brought us together and helped us. And so it came to a time when there was a real heart that the unity movement should move to another level. So in 2003, I was invited, talking about Intercultural Church, transforming a city. You see, that was really where it began for me. Because I was invited by this amazing man of God, John Kavanagh and Nick Harden and one or two others, and we formed together for the Harvest. And with a clear vision, and there's some strap lines there which would tell you what it meant, that every man, woman, and child in our city should hear the gospel. So by even defining that, you were being inclusive. So suddenly it mattered that someone like me would be called to be part of that. And that visibility, I think, made a big difference even to the landscape of our city. So suddenly all the church leaders that were from the South, Greater South and so on, began to feel, oh, we belong here because of, the composition of the leadership of it. Because visibility counts. And I can tell you so many amazing things that have happened as a result of that. We began prayer evenings and prayer movements, and various groups would meet to pray. We had 300 people coming together to pray, and it led to big events, worship together, where we had all types of music, gospel music, and various types of music. And then it led to the city, a desire to engage with the city, and we had a festival called Mercy Fest, and we had thousands of people that came together from different churches. We all had the same top, and we went and did various acts of kindness around the city. The police supported us. That was my first engagement with the police, which was a very positive one. Because I was in the police car, but not arrested. We were actually doing positive acts together.
Yeah.
But it gave a visibility of the church to the city. And there was a word that came from the city that the church actually does exist. That was what came, because I started engaging with the city council then. And so the word was, the church is alive. Why? Because they saw the church in its unity on the streets, doing things together. Then we had a festival as well. So lots of stuff have happened as a result of us coming together and engaging with our city.
Really helpful. I guess the importance of the bigger vision that no one church
vision,
should do.
yes.
And the visibility of having other leaders from different groups being visibly leading.
Yeah.
Fantastic. Yeah. So we've gone from the 3 L's, Leeds to Liverpool, now down to London. So I'll go to Gurma next. Gurma, you're involved with the London project. Do you want to kind of share what you've been doing over the last kind of year, particularly on this whole idea of intercultural work?
So the London project is a ministry that is affiliated to Tim Keller's ministry. And our conviction is that God brought the international community not only to help to equip them, to empower them to reach their own community, but actually to be a blessing for Britain. And for that to happen, there must be intercultural engagement between the host nation and also the international community that we have in Britain. So that's where we have been working on. How can we create intercultural engagement for the sake of the city?
And you've done it over food, haven't you? Food always works. So what do you share about these roundtables you've been having with food?
Yes. So I think one of the negative, we wanted to combat this external pressure to diversify and to engage intercultural engagement, and I don't think that is helpful. There's an external pressure to diversify without a conviction why. And also to create opportunity for people to have an encounter. So we have this strategy called table. So what we do is we invite leaders. So we invited Latin American leaders in London, and we told 30 people will come. More than 60 people turned up. And then we had African table, South Asian table, the same amount of people. And then we had a Middle Eastern table. And then we had British leaders table, and we brought them, the white leaders in London, to share with them what the international community is saying and to help them kind of to share our rationale for intercultural engagement. And we have Chinese table, Korean table, and Caribbean table to do. And then in 18th of May next year, we are bringing everyone together, the 450 leaders, and say, look, this is what the kingdom of God is like. This is what London looks like. We cannot reach and serve the gospel need of the city with one of us missing. So how can we collaborate locally as well as citywide? So we work with other partner organizations as well.
It's going to be a great day just before Pentecost as well, which is quite significant.
That's right.
So just kind of, what are the things you've been learning and listening when you've heard about intercultural groups meeting? What have been some of the kind of things that have been fed back to you?
So I think there's four things that the international community is saying to the white leaders, and I think that would be a bit informative. One is thank you. Thank you for the mission, the gospel, your generosity for sending missionaries for many, many decades. And we are the result of that missionary work. We just want to express that thank you. And thank you for making your churches available for our services, for hosting us, for being a voice for the voiceless, and for standing with those who are struggling. So there is a thank you message. And secondly, what they are saying is trust in our love for Britain. You know, when you are a foreigner, when you are a migrant, your love is suspected, it's seen in suspicion. You are here for your own benefit, and you know. So what we say to them, what they are saying is, we are making ourselves present before God and ask God to give us His heart for this nation. And God's heart for this nation is love. So even if you doubt our love for Britain, trust His love in our heart for Britain, and let's love Britain together. So that's the second thing. The third thing is have a posture of receiving. So when Britain is a generous country, and in different ways you have been giving several things, and if you have been a giver for a long time, receiving becomes a problem. In fact, could be seen as a weakness. So until you receive from me, you haven't received me as a fully human being, and you haven't acknowledged that I am a brother as gifted as you are. So you have to have a posture of receiving in order to benefit from the international community and what God is doing, what God is doing among the international community. So that posture of receiving is very, very important. And the fourth thing is, see us as missional partners. We are not here to serve our own just community. The love of God, the gospel of Jesus Christ breaks every barrier. We can't be able to reach and serve the white community, the British. We are here for Britain, not only for our nation. So see us as mission partners and engage with us as missionary partners. So that is kind of the scenario, the kind of the environment we are trying to create.
Brilliant. So helpful. Thank you, Goma. And then finally, Caroline, you're in Tower Hamlets, one of the most multicultural kind of boroughs. You run a church unity group there. What are some of the things you've been learning as you've been working across the borough?
Yeah, I was wondering. So I've been really privileged to be able to work for lots of different organisations. So I think I'm going to stretch a bit beyond the borough even. I think basically I've worked in lots of different organisations, but not as an expert in anything. And in those positions, I've been enormously privileged by God's grace to have the opportunity to have time. So whether it be an organisation that was in transition, and I was a church partnership director, I had the time to go and speak to church leaders right across. I've worked, so I guess I feel very like this panel is enormously gifted and blessed in so many ways, but in some ways, I guess the thing that I've had is the privilege of perspectives, of seeing what God's doing across different areas. And I think when you get that perspective, you do get the gift of just seeing why intercultural church is so key and why it's so important. And I think that's the thing. So even the stuff that Goma's been doing with the London Project, who I worked with briefly, it takes time to get to know people. And the way that we work in our churches and organisations, if I was to say something, is that often we are just quite focused on what we're trying to do. So the intercultural aspect is like, oh, we need a speaker that is a little bit from a culture that's not ours. Or, and then it's like, oh, okay, so if we rewind that back, getting to know a group of people, and if you've ever had lunch with Goma, it's not 1 hour. I literally book the rest of the day off, and who has the time? Who's on, when we're on the clock and we're being paid a certain thing. But, the ways of God are so different. The ways of God are relational. They're foolishness to the world. And it can be hard, especially even in the Christian sector, may I call it that, where we are, we have organisational objectives. I'm not sure how many organisations have relational building as them. And I guess I've been in that fortunate position of being able to work in organisations where that has just been a gift. It takes intentionality, and it takes a bit of a lot of uncomfortableness. And I'm so encouraged by this room, because I've been in lots of different rooms with Andy, with others, and I don't know most of you, which is brilliant. because it means that we're not in the same silos either. So I think, I am part of the leadership of an intercultural church in Tower Hamlets. It's interesting, I've only been there 4 years, but it was something that we resonated when this one was born, so apologies. This is Arwen, so 4 years ago. And the joy, we were hearing a story last week, at a service that we had recently, where one of the guys was like, my children have grown up in this church and they don't know anything but intercultural. And that isn't always the same when you go around. And so I think it is a massive gift. In Tower Hamlets, we have a majority Muslim, Bengali population, but you've got a real mix of people. You've got working class white, British, each of these different groups. We've got big populations of Chinese people coming in around the Isle of Dogs and Canary Wharf, whether that be for jobs or other. And it's, and it is easy for them to stick into their silos. So actually reaching out beyond this is, it takes effort and it takes time. But it's the gospel. And so the understanding of that as the gospel that we're living in, that is uncomfortable. And, I think there are more and more people that are growing up, probably, Germa and I talk about this a lot. We are naturally people that don't fit into different places. So my background, Chinese, Malaysian, my parents were here in the 70s. I've grown up in London. I grew up in a council estate, didn't sound like this, had to change my accent. So when we moved to the suburbs, people understood me, and it was only about 5-10 minutes down the road, all in North London. Now I'm in East London. It's like there's always been, I went up to Edinburgh University, there was a whole load of public school people that I had no idea, it was another world, so it's always this thing about not being in a world that is comfortable. But for me, when I came to faith, I think that's where the gospel and actually the belonging that you get from, what Jesus did on the cross is just incredible. Brilliant. And it's a beautiful family. Sorry, I'm going on a bit long, but yeah.
Brilliant, that's fantastic. Have a round of applause for this amazing panel. Thank you so much, guys. Really fantastic. So good, thank you.